Women rarely communicate exactly what they mean. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's emotional, and sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. One of the biggest mistakes men make in relationships is believing every word a woman says at face value. They hear a sentence, assume it means exactly what it sounds like, and then build their decisions around that assumption. More often than not, that's where confusion, frustration, and disappointment begin. If you've ever walked away from a conversation wondering what she actually meant, if you've ever been confused because her actions didn't seem to match her words, or if you've ever found yourself thinking, she told me one thing, but then she did the complete opposite, then you need to pay very close attention. Because what I'm about to share isn't about calling women dishonest or saying they can't be trusted. It's about understanding that men and women often communicate very differently, especially when emotions are involved. Today, we're going to break down 7 common things women say that many men take literally, but which often carry a completely different psychological meaning. Once you understand the intention behind these statements, you'll stop reacting to every word and start paying attention to what really matters. Stay with me until the final statement because it's the one that traps more men than almost any other. Thousands of men have believed it, built relationships around it, and later realized they completely misunderstood what was actually being communicated. By the end of this video, you'll understand why emotionally intelligent men don't just listen to words. They learn to understand the psychology behind them. The first statement many men hear is, "I have trust issues." On the surface, it sounds honest. It sounds vulnerable. It even sounds like she's giving you a chance to understand her better. And sometimes she genuinely is. But what many men fail to realize is that this statement should never be heard as an invitation to prove that you're different. Instead, it should be heard as information about where she is emotionally. One of the biggest mistakes men make is immediately stepping into the role of the rescuer. They hear those 4 words and think, "I'll be the man who helps her trust again." They become more patient, more available, and more willing to overlook unhealthy behavior because they believe enough love and consistency will solve the problem. Unfortunately, that's rarely how psychology works. When a woman tells you she has trust issues, she's often telling you that she's carrying emotional baggage from previous experiences. Those experiences may involve betrayal, dishonesty, disappointment, or repeated poor relationship choices. Whatever the cause, those wounds existed before you arrived, and it's not your responsibility to heal them. That doesn't mean she's a bad person or that she's lying. It simply means she's letting you know that trust won't come easily, and neither will emotional stability. The healthiest response isn't to become her therapist or her emotional fixer. It's to pay attention. Ask yourself whether she's actively working through those trust issues or simply expecting the next man to carry the burden. There's a huge difference. Emotionally mature people take responsibility for healing. Emotionally immature people expect someone else to repair the damage for them. So when you hear, "I have trust issues," don't hear a challenge, hear a warning. Listen carefully, observe her actions, and remember this. Understanding someone's emotional wounds is important, but believing you can save them is where many men lose themselves. The second statement many men hear, especially in today's dating world, is, "I'm dating with intentions." At first glance, it sounds exactly like what every serious man wants to hear. It suggests maturity, commitment, and someone who knows what they want. And to be fair, some women genuinely mean it. But this is where emotionally intelligent men stop listening only to the words and start looking at the bigger picture. Whenever a woman tells you she's dating with intentions, don't just ask yourself what she says she wants. Ask yourself when those intentions appeared. Timing matters. If a woman in her early 20s says she's dating with intentions, it often reflects someone who entered the dating world already knowing what she wanted. But when someone has spent many years casually dating, jumping from relationship to relationship, or repeatedly choosing partners who clearly weren't compatible, and only later begins talking about dating with intentions, it's worth paying attention to the journey that brought her there. That doesn't automatically mean she's being dishonest. People grow. People mature, priorities change with age and experience, but growth should be visible in more than just words. The question isn't whether she's dating with intentions today. The question is whether her habits, choices, and behavior actually support those intentions. Many men become so excited by hearing the right words that they stop observing the actions. They assume the conversation is enough proof. It isn't. Anyone can say they're ready for something serious. The real evidence is found in consistency, emotional maturity, accountability, and the type of relationships they continue choosing. Never judge a person's future by one sentence. Judge it by the patterns they've created over time. Words tell you what someone hopes to become. Consistent behavior tells you who they are today. The third statement you've probably heard at some point is, "Looks don't matter." Now, this is one of those statements that contains both truth and exaggeration at the same time. If you take it literally, you'll misunderstand how attraction actually works. Let's be honest, physical attraction exists. It always has, and it always will. Human beings naturally notice appearance before they notice personality. That's simply how first impressions work. So, when someone says looks don't matter at all, that's usually not an accurate reflection of reality. What many women actually mean is that looks alone aren't enough. A man can be extremely handsome, but if he lacks confidence, purpose, emotional stability, discipline, or self-respect, that initial attraction fades surprisingly fast. On the other hand, a man who takes care of himself, carries himself with confidence, leads his life with purpose, and makes a woman feel emotionally secure often becomes far more attractive over time, even if he isn't the most physically attractive man in the room. This is where many men become confused. They hear looks don't matter, and they stop taking care of themselves. They neglect their health, their fitness, their grooming, and the way they present themselves to the world. Then they wonder why attraction disappears. The truth sits somewhere in the middle. Looks open doors. Character keeps them open. Physical attraction may get someone's attention, but your confidence, emotional strength, leadership, and lifestyle determine whether that attraction continues growing. So when a woman says, "Looks don't matter," don't interpret it as permission to ignore your appearance. Instead, understand the deeper message. Your looks may not be the only thing she values, but they are still part of the complete picture. The smartest men don't obsess over appearance, but they never neglect it either. The fourth statement many men hear is, "Money doesn't matter." Just like the previous statement, this one contains a mixture of truth and exaggeration. If you hear it as an absolute statement, you're likely to misunderstand what she's actually trying to communicate. Very few emotionally mature women are looking for a billionaire. Most aren't expecting luxury cars, private jets, or unlimited wealth. But that doesn't mean money has no role in attraction or long-term relationships. What many women are really talking about isn't money itself. They're talking about what money often represents: stability, responsibility, security, the ability to build a life together. When a woman says money doesn't matter, she usually isn't saying she's comfortable with a man who refuses to work, has no ambition, or constantly struggles because of poor financial decisions. What she often means is that she doesn't need a wealthy man, but she does want someone who is responsible, dependable, and capable of managing his own life. This is where some men make a serious mistake. They assume financial success doesn't matter at all, so they stop developing themselves professionally. Others go to the opposite extreme and believe money alone will make them attractive. Neither approach tells the full story. Money can create opportunities. It can reduce stress. It can provide comfort. But by itself, it cannot replace confidence, character, emotional maturity, or genuine connection. So when you hear a woman say, "Money doesn't matter," don't focus only on the words. Look at the bigger picture. Financial wealth may not be the requirement, but financial responsibility almost always is. The strongest relationships are rarely built on money alone, but they are much easier to build when two emotionally mature people are also capable of building a stable life together. The fifth statement many men hear, especially when dating a single mother, is, "I'm not looking for a father for my kids." At first, that sounds reassuring. It sounds like she's trying to remove one of the biggest concerns many men have before entering that kind of relationship. And in some cases, she genuinely believes that's true. But once again, don't stop at the words. Pay attention to how the relationship develops over time. When a woman says this, what she's often communicating is, "I'm not looking for someone to take that role immediately." Those are two very different things. Relationships naturally evolve. The more time you spend together, the more emotionally invested both of you become. If the relationship becomes serious, it's only natural that you'll begin interacting more with her children. You may start helping with small things, attending family events, offering advice, or simply being present more often. Without even realizing it, your role begins to expand. This is why emotionally intelligent men understand that consistency changes expectations. The more dependable you become, the more responsibility people naturally associate with you. That doesn't mean she's trying to deceive you. It means human relationships rarely stay exactly where they started. Before entering any serious relationship with someone who has children, don't just listen to what she says today. Ask yourself whether you're genuinely prepared for what that relationship could become 6 months or even 2 years from now. Words describe the present. Reality often describes the future. So when you hear, "I'm not looking for a father for my kids," don't immediately assume the situation will always remain that way. Relationships grow, expectations evolve, and emotionally mature men make decisions based not only on today's conversation, but also on tomorrow's possibilities. The sixth statement many men hear is, "I'm not ready for a relationship." This is probably one of the most misunderstood phrases in modern dating, because many men hear it as a temporary obstacle. They think, if I'm patient enough, if I stay around, if I prove myself, eventually she'll be ready. That's the trap. Now let's be fair. Sometimes a woman genuinely isn't ready for a relationship. She may have recently gone through a breakup, be dealing with personal challenges, or simply feel emotionally overwhelmed. Those situations do exist, but emotionally intelligent men understand that the words alone are never enough. They always pay attention to what happens next. If she says she's not ready for a relationship but continues investing in getting to know you, communicates consistently, and gradually builds trust, then her actions match her words. But if she says she's not ready for a relationship, then shortly afterward begins seriously dating someone else, what she was really communicating wasn't that she wasn't ready for a relationship. She wasn't ready for that relationship. That's an important distinction many men miss. Instead of trying to convince her otherwise, emotionally mature men simply accept what they've been told and move forward. They don't argue. They don't negotiate. They don't wait around hoping to become the exception. Remember this. When someone's words leave you confused, their actions usually provide the answer. Don't build your future around what someone might feel one day. Build it around what they're consistently showing you today. The strongest men don't chase potential. They pay attention to patterns because patterns reveal the truth far more often than promises ever will. The seventh and final statement is perhaps the most dangerous because it has convinced countless men to lower their guard. At some point in a relationship, especially during an emotional conversation or an intimate moment, a woman might look at you and say, "You're the only one." For many men, those words feel like absolute certainty. They immediately assume they've secured something permanent. They stop paying attention, stop observing, and start believing the relationship is guaranteed. This is where emotional intelligence becomes so important. When someone is deeply emotional, they often speak from how they feel in that moment, not necessarily from what the future will look like. That doesn't automatically mean they're lying. It simply means emotions and permanence are not the same thing. A woman can genuinely believe you're the only man she wants today. She can genuinely feel completely connected to you in that moment. But feelings can change when respect disappears, trust is broken, or the relationship slowly begins falling apart. That's why wise men never build their confidence on emotional declarations alone. Instead, they pay attention to consistency. Does her behavior match her words? Does she continue choosing you when life becomes difficult? Does she show loyalty through her actions as much as through her emotions? Words can create comfort, but patterns create confidence. This doesn't mean you should become suspicious every time a woman expresses her feelings. It simply means you shouldn't mistake emotional certainty for a lifelong guarantee. The strongest men understand one simple principle. Listen carefully to what people say, but place even greater value on what they consistently do. Because in the end, behavior is almost always a more reliable indicator than words. And that's true in every healthy relationship. What we've discussed today isn't about becoming suspicious of women or assuming every word they say has a hidden agenda. That's not the lesson at all. The real lesson is understanding that communication is more complex than most people realize. Words matter, but words without context can easily be misunderstood. That's why emotionally intelligent men don't just listen to what is being said. They also pay attention to behavior, consistency, timing, and patterns. Think about the 7 statements we've covered. None of them automatically make someone dishonest. A woman may genuinely have trust issues. She may genuinely want a serious relationship. She may honestly believe that looks or money aren't the most important things. She may even sincerely believe she's not ready for a relationship, or that you're the only man she wants in that moment. The mistake isn't believing her. The mistake is believing the words while ignoring everything else. Actions always provide context for words. Consistency gives meaning to promises. Time reveals intentions far better than emotions ever can. The strongest men don't argue with what women say. They don't try to decode every sentence or catch someone in a contradiction. Instead, they remain calm. They observe and they allow patterns to reveal the truth naturally. That approach protects you from disappointment far better than becoming cynical ever will. So let me ask you this. Which of these 7 statements have you personally heard before? And did the actions eventually match the words? Share your experience in the comments below, because your story might help another man see something he has been missing. If this video gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another discussion on female psychology, relationships, and human behavior. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next.